Hello, in this video, we'll discuss quantifying low-level motor effects of emotion, validating fish flow in affective contexts. First, it is important to understand what emotion is. Emotion is typically conceptualized as an adaptive state that prepares us to pursue our goals. In other words, people adapt their cognitive states and behavior under emotional influence. And the ways in which cognition and behavior changes according to emotion have been widely studied. The influence of emotion is typically studied using one of two approaches, depending on research objectives, the categorical approach and the dimensional approach. In this study, we systematically investigate the effects of emotion using the two-dimensional model, valence, which refers to positivity or negativity, and arousal, which refers to intensity. Previous research has also examined effects of emotion along the dimension of valence and arousal. Positive emotions primarily facilitate cognitive flexibility and problem solving. Arousal contributes positively to the readiness for cognitive tasks. However, excessive arousal can impair working memory. As a result, the impact on task performance varies depending on the task difficulty. Recently, the influence of emotion has become increasingly significant in the field of HCI, with application in diverse areas such as education, autonomous vehicles, and intelligent dialogue systems. The emergence of affective computing, in particular, highlights the importance of emotion in computing environments. However, within HCI, fine-grained investigations of motor domains such as pointing or selection remain relatively underexplored. To address this gap, our experiment examined whether emotion can influence fine-grained pointing interactions by applying Fitzlow, a theory widely used in the HCI field to model such tasks. Specifically, we investigate movement time, reaction time, error time, and throughput as dependent metrics to comprehensively analyze these processes. In this experiment, participants are primed with specific emotional states prior to performing physical tasks, allowing for a systematic investigation of emotional effects. This experiment addresses three main research questions. First, do the emotional dimension of valence and arousal influence the measures of core motor performance in the physical tasks? Second, can explanatory power of Vislo be improved by incorporating emotions? Third, does task difficulty moderate the effects of valence and arousal on motor performance? To address these questions, this experiment comprises two studies. First study examined cases with a relatively low index of difficulty, where the second focused on high index of difficulty conditions. Apart from the width and distance combination, our procedures are identical across the two studies. Each study begins with an informed consent and practice phase, followed by the affective priming procedure, encompassing five emotional categories. To induce emotions, we combine two standardized image datasets commonly used in psychology field, extracting 120 images each for four valence arousal affective categories and a baseline condition, resulting in five emotional conditions in total. Each image was presented to participants in a random order prior to each visual task. For each trial, the procedure was as follows. A gray central fixation point signaled participant to await task initiation. When the fixate point turned white, participants were instructed to position the mouse cursor at the center of the fixation point. After maintaining this position for a random duration, the mouse was deactivated and an emotional image appeared at the center of the screen for 3 seconds. After the 3 seconds, the mouse was then reactivated and for another random interval, a target button appeared. Participants were instructed to move the mouse and click the button both quickly and accurately. After the click, a black screen indicated the end of the trial, followed by the reappearance of the gray fixation cross after a random delay, signaling the next trial. For each emotion, a total of 120 trials were conducted, with 32 trials assigned to each width and distance combination. After 32 trials, participant emotional state were assessed to verify the effectiveness of the priming procedure. The analysis yielded the following results. Most participants successfully experienced changes in valence compared to the baseline, while successful induction in arousal was observed in only a subset of categories. This likely reflects a limitation in the arousal range of image datasets, the assessment protocol every 32 trials, and the increased variability resulting from the large number of images used. To ensure robustness, analysis were performed not only by emotional category but also according to the annotated values of each image. For the main physical variables, the result of study 1 were as follows. Notably, positive emotion led to faster movement times and improved overall efficiency. This tendency was more pronounced when positive emotions were stronger. Study 2 showed broadly similar patterns as Study 1. However, the influence of arousal was more pronounced. Increased arousal reduced movement speed and overall efficiency. As a result, the interaction differed from Study 1 in that even positive emotions led to slower speeds and reduced efficiency when arousal was excessively high. This suggests that even under positive valence, a moderate level of arousal is more beneficial than a high level of arousal. To address the ambiguity of the priming effect, we also examine the influence of the annotated values of individual images. This analysis yielded the same conclusions, further supporting the main findings. Additionally, analysis of physical regression outskill values show that fitting the model separately for its emotional condition yield better accuracy than fitting the data irrespective of emotion. These findings suggested that incorporating emotional state into the model allows a more precise representation of human performance when emotional effects are respected. In summary, our findings demonstrate the nuanced impact of emotion and task difficulty on fine-grained human-computer interactions. By revealing such complex dynamics, this work emphasizes the value of designing technologies that not only adaptive but also emotional intelligent. As affective computing continues to evolve, we hope this insight inspire further exploration into emotion recognition, personalization, and user diversity, paving the way for richer and more human-centered digital experiences.